Okay, so for any of the students that are watching this virtually, hopefully they can see the screen. So we're going to talk about the character analysis. Unfortunately, I don't have any digital aids about the character analysis, so you'll have to be able to go to your handbook. So is everybody at section 56, character analysis? What page is that on? All right, so on page 225, section 56 is the character analysis. Now, we are almost done with number 1, which says to read the work, noting the way the author reveals the characters. So I mentioned this to you too. I went ahead and had you guys think about which character you might want to do a character analysis about so that you could, you know, maybe dog ear or put little pieces of paper or something on pages that you felt like gave you really good information about describing that character. And then you guys also just finished your assignment, your outline assignment, which will start you on your particular character that you want to take. So has everybody chosen the exact character that they want to do? Is anybody changing what they had given me before? I think I had James was going to take Arthur Dimmesdale. Caleb, you were going to take Roger Chillingworth. Isaiah was going to do Pearl. Thomas, you were going to also do Roger Chillingworth. And then Chad, you wanted Hester Prynne. Yeah?
Yeah, okay. So does Isaiah and James realize that Arthur's a baby daddy at this point?
Hopefully, if they've been reading along, they should be there with us. So yes, so if they are watching, they should have realized at this point that, spoiler alert, Pearl is Dimmesdale's. Dun, dun, dun. All right, yes. Yeah, no, this is a definite, right? So everybody should right now be focused on that character. Now, part 2 of this assignment, make a list of 15 ways that Hawthorne describes or comments about the character in the book. Y'all, so I bolded this, make page numbers for future reference. So you need to start going through this book. That's why I gave you the chapter summaries. So if you are talking about Roger Chillingworth, then you need to go to the chapter summary. I can't find it. That is where the recognition, I think, is the title of that chapter. So go to recognition or whatever chapter that is, and you're going to know, okay, that's the chapter where we first see Chillingworth. He is physical description. So his physical description is an excellent talking point for him because it transitions and changes throughout the story. He already starts a little off, right? As you said, he's built different. But then it takes a much more sinister turn and it becomes even more pronounced how his outward appearance begins to truly represent his inward manifestation. Yeah. You want to do Dimmesdale instead? Okay. All right, we can change that. And so that would be 1. So again, go back to your outline. You should at this point have 4 main characteristics that you want to talk about. And so find quotes or summarize sections. Like if you're summarizing, obviously if it's a conversation, like between Dimmesdale and Chillingworth, if you're doing one of those 2 characters, you're going to want to talk about the chapter, I think it's the leech and his patient, because that really is a good transition chapter of where you see that Chillingworth has really got his talons into Dimmesdale, and Dimmesdale is really showing his physical manifestation of guilt. The leech and his patient. There's one, the leech and his patient. That's a good one if you want to talk about, like, there's a lot of conversation between Chillingworth and Dimmesdale, but you're not going to quote an entire conversation. So you may want to summarize like that Chillingworth over and over again needled and picked at Dimmesdale, trying to get him to confess what Chillingworth only suspected. And then but you would need to give me like the page number. Where did that conversation happen? Like, what are you referencing? So you need to go back through and find those. So let's see, let me just give you, just so you have an example on your screen. So 15 ways Hawthorne describes or comments. So who has their outline close at hand? I know most of you let's do Dimsdale. So one is he is sickly or fragile, whatever. And so some comments about this, you would have like a quote, soft spoken and fragile in his manner. I don't know, I'm just making this up. On page, this would be like at the very beginning, like he's not sick, but he's still frail, right? So maybe on page like 15, whatever. So then you may also have, you would want to quote that he keeps rubbing at his chest as if in pain. Maybe this is by page 210. Again, I'm totally good. So, and they don't have to be in quotations. You can just summarize it. And just, so you would have maybe 4 or 5 things about him being fragile. And then your second one would be his minister. And so you would want to have well respected, and maybe a quote about how he's well respected by the townspeople, somewhere there at the beginning. You know, and then even like what we just read, gave one of his most inspired, godly, inspired sermons. Can't even spell, not even a little bit. And so like chapter 14, yeah, this book is, so like 236, that's very good. Okay, so you want to talk about that. And so think about how you're going to write this paper. So if you're writing about Dimsdale, again, you're writing about his, you know, the fact that he's a minister is important because he doesn't confess because of his position in the community. And so the fact that he's a minister is important. So you would also want to make sure you summarize why he didn't confess. Didn't confess to protect the people who, you know, needed him. That's not really a good way to put it, but that's sort of where he was at, right? How did he justify not saying anything? If he had just been some blacksmith or layman of some kind, it wouldn't have made as big of a difference. But so many people relied on him for their religious leadership, spiritual leadership, that he used that to justify not saying anything. But then, of course, plot-wise, one of the most important things is that he is Pearl's father. And so guilt is a big thing. You know, avoided her and Hester to save face, right? Didn't want to be seen, looking like Pearl. This doesn't really make sense. I'm trying to go fast, right? He didn't want to be obvious that they had physical similarities. So it's important that he's Pearl's father because that's one of the main components of the plot. Same thing with Chillingworth. It's important that you would, like, one of the main points should be his quest for revenge. You have so much there because his only reason for existing in this story is that what? He becomes the antagonist. Exactly. He is dead set on finding out who the father is and seeking revenge and destroying that man. And so that is hugely important to write as one of your main 4 points, but then you can use, like, if revenge is your main point, the fact that he is Hester's husband is a subpoint, a very important subpoint. The fact that he is extremely intelligent is another subpoint. He's if anybody's going to find it out, this guy is very, very smart. And the fact that he, you know, when you talk about the fact that he's a doctor, the fact that he's a doctor is important because that's how he gets an in with Dimsdale, because Dimsdale has health issues. And so he latches on to Dimsdale because as a doctor, he has an instant elevated view of himself in the community. Everybody finds value in him. And so he's allowed more movement and connections than he would have been as if he'd not been a doctor. But he also was able to attach himself to Dimsdale and spend, I think they end up living in the same house together. Like I think they rent rooms from a widow. And so he ends up renting a room. And so he has full access to Dimsdale. So the fact that he's a doctor, big deal. The fact that he is seeking revenge allows you to pull a lot of other things. And then you can find two more kind of important ones there that you can tie into all of that. So the last thing, and I would, maybe you could even think about your thesis statement before you really start building your list. It's either way, you can do it in either direction, depends on how your brain works, right? So if you want to figure out what you want to write about, like as your thesis statement, knowing that helps you organize your list of ideas and what your main 4 points are going to be and like all of the supporting. And so do y'all understand the list part? Like the list, you want to you're making a list of 15 references to the main characteristics that you want to talk about. So don't give me like a different quote or reference to 15 different characteristics, right? They need to tie together. So pick your 4 main from your outline and then find comments in the story that support one of those 4. Keep it about equal. You can have 16 or 17 or 18, but you need to have at least 15 actual references to the book. Does that make sense? You know what I'm saying here? So you may want to write your thesis statement first because your thesis statement tells me what are the main ideas you're going to talk to me about this character. So the thesis statement for Hester might be Hawthorne. I can't spell. Can't get a thought out. I've had a migraine for 3 days and it's killing me. The Scarlet Letter, the main character demonstrates both can be to sinners through symbolism, her inner strength, and this one doesn't really make any sense, but through symbolism, her inner strength, and let's see, her self reproach. That really would be more like her, I can't think of the word right now, but there was a whole section on it of like how she tried to punish herself, right? She punished herself by staying in the town and facing what she did. She punished herself by wearing coarse clothes. She punished herself by spending so much time and effort helping the poor. And then she also punished herself by not sharing the burden of guilt with the father. Okay, so and then in that case, when I go through my descriptions, you know, then like my first thing about Hester would be she committed adultery. Spell that wrong every time. Wore the scarlet letter, never told who the father was the mother of Pearl. Cracks me up. You know, and so like under my main hit, so the symbolism is the scarlet letter. The symbolism is you know, so I might do that a little bit, but then, then a couple more. My second point, her inner strength Then I would have a quote describing her strength. I would have her outward beauty throughout her trials. Trial. There we go. Was a symbol of her inner strength. You know, something like that. And you know, then you may talk about, you know, she kept her head high. Good grief. Of course, I'm recording how awful I am at typing. She kept her head high even as the townspeople, or I would say townswomen, condemned her. Right. That was at like at the very beginning, so that'd be somewhere on like page 20. I don't know. So does that make sense? Like what the expectation is? We all feel good about the list. And so in this case, like I wrote my thesis statement and then I created my list from my thesis statement. So think about what are the main characteristics you want to talk about and either create your list and then build your thesis statement from that, or just the way my brain works, I would sort of think about from what I've read, what I want to write about my character, what I feel like are the main important points. Then I would go back. And so I'd write my thesis statement first. Then I would go back and start looking for quotes and sections of the book that support my thesis statement. Okay.
So like the way you did that, as the numbers, is that 1 and 2, or is it?
That's my, no. Yeah. These are my, no, yeah, this one is not.
Okay.
This one, so these here are like my, the 1, 2, and 3 just tell me which main ideas my supporting statements support. I mean, so you would definitely, I mean, when you say she wore the scarlet letter, it's because the letter stood for A, for adultery. So tomorrow, I know y'all have church tonight. So tomorrow, at least have maybe an idea of your thesis statement. You know, so maybe just jot down some ideas about what you want to talk about, but we'll spend more time in here kind of doing that together. And that's why I gave you the chapter summaries, because chapter summaries may give you some ideas, and they also tell you where to find key interactions that will support your main ideas. Okay, also just a reminder that we have our test on Friday for grammar, phrases, parallelism, point of view, and what's that last one? Misplaced modifiers. So we will do a little bit of practice. We're going to do a little more grammar tomorrow. I wanted to spend today solely on this composition piece and make sure you guys were in a good place for that. So I will see you tomorrow.